invited Jon to come on the show to talk about what he's done specifically with nursing home regulations, and then also what he has done in regard to the conversion of the nursing home. So good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you, sir?
Yeah, good to be with you today, Chris.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jon, for carving out some time. I know you're really busy here, but I do think this is important. What I'm going to run through is timeline-ish, as I think this is a very important story, and I think it's something people can learn from who are in other elected officials around the state, and also because particularly if we're going to have another, as they say, rise in these cases as we head to the fall, if that's what they're predicting anyway. So I do think some of the moves you've made have been spectacular. Talk a little bit about the guidance you put down for nursing homes and why you did that so early in this game.
Yeah. And if I could just back up just a second, Chris. So a couple of things. So I will qualify everything I will say now by noting or emphasizing that this is. I don't want people to think that this is a victory lap or we're done with stuff. It's flattening, and now we've getting increasing number of cases again, and so. We've got to stay sharp, and so nobody should interpret anything that I say as to be anything to suggest that we shouldn't remain on top of things. But my approach in general is that, look, this is all new to everybody, and as we, my church is the mayor, city of 100,000. People that has, that center is a region of about 200 to 250,000 is to keep people safe. And this whole thing is the coronavirus, a modern plague, is new to all of us, right? It just, it's been tempting to think of this as something, the kind of event that's been relegated to the history books, and that modern technology has overtaken, this kind of risk. And, we've learned the hard way that's just not so. So, I can remember, just thinking way back in ancient history as of February, right, 3 months ago, as we started to learn more about this, my wife Ann, who's a physician, was really sounding the alarm bells with me and saying, hey, this is not like, the SARS or epidemic or the avian flu or Ebola, none of which really turned into anything in the United States. This thing is a much more real threat. And so, I didn't go to medical school or public health school or, I can't remember when I took my last biology class, but like any other problem, and this is true of the ransomware problem we had last year and other things that we've had to confront, it's really important to get smart about the problem really quickly and to get input from a lot of places to circle the wagons so that we open the lines of communication up. And so that's really the starting point. Like figure out what on earth are we facing here. And then once you start getting started to get an understanding of the risks, and nobody completely understands it right now. We don't know exactly where all this is going, even at this point in May. But once you have sort of a feel for what the risks are and where the vulnerable points are and what's to be expected out of both city government and government at other levels on the one hand and the public on the other, then you have to start to act, and you have to act on clear and reliable information and reinforce the trust in at least local government that the public has. And that means more than anything else is telling people the information that you have, to keep putting it out there, and to let them know, even if it's bad information, even if it's unwelcome information, even if it's bad news, people are willing to accept it as long as you're being straight with them and telling them what you're going to do about it and what's expected of them in the way of protecting themselves and their families. So that's been the approach from the start. And the decisions we've made have been based on, the best interest of the residents of our city and our region, period, full stop. And we've taken a very much a data-driven approach, as we always do, to understand what the risks are and to explain them clearly and repeatedly to the public so that everybody's on the same page. And so that's what we've done. And so, that doesn't mean for me, this is just my own style, just to sort of sit back and wait for, orders from on high to take next steps. We need to have the authority to take steps here, and we've done that, and so we haven't waited. So going back, to answer directly your question. So in that context, we looked at, among other things, that we've got a real vulnerability with nursing homes and long-term care centers. We had seen what had happened in Kirkland, Washington, when the virus got into the facility. It basically wiped out the place. And so we started preparing a plan to protect our vulnerable population, seniors generally, but especially those seniors living in long-term care facilities, as well as nursing homes and senior living facilities. And knowing that, there's no perfect solution. It really doesn't take much. You could have all the right precautions in place and not be 100% guaranteed that the virus will not get in. As we've seen, that it still has gotten in, including in places here in New Bedford, but we would at least reduce the risk a little bit. And so, knock on wood, thankfully, because we, imposed a very strict order concerning nursing homes and those other types of facilities, we haven't seen as yet one of those great big outbreaks. But again, we're not letting our guard down. But that order was not something that the state did. We said we're going to do this, and we're not sure exactly what our emergency powers will allow us to do, but we're going to use them to the fullest extent we can. So, that order was derived from the input of nursing homes and long-term care facility operators, and we thought it was, it essentially buttoned up those places. It restricted visitorship. It forced certain reporting requirements and inspections, and we did something similar with group homes because we thought there was a risk there. And so, we tried to get out ahead of it, and that's what you want to do in a crisis. You just don't want to be in reactive mode. You want to be getting out ahead of the thing as best you can. In a similar vein, we've approached our other challenges in the same way. Whether it's shutting down the New Bedford Half Marathon or imposing social distancing measures. We came out with a mask policy well ahead of where the state was. Those are the kinds of things you have to do to stay out ahead of it. So, look, it's going to be a struggle for a while, but our approach has been, to stick with it, get out ahead, communicate, and that's why have a morning briefing every morning, so that everybody understands where things are, and that we can talk over new challenges and keep up the tempo of action that is, I think, necessary in any crisis, while continuing to plan for the long term. So that's the overall approach.
We're speaking with Mayor Jon Mitchell, the mayor of New Bedford. You and I had a conversation right after you'd shut down the New Bedford Half Marathon. You and the committee, you'd gone on Barry's show. We were talking in the hallway, and I remember you saying it. And it seems like it's so long ago, and things are so different now. But where you said basically, yeah, look, I'm not going to wait for the state to tell me what I'm going to do. We're going to take some actions here, and you've certainly followed through on that. When you started to talk about this a little bit, you mentioned your wife, and I do think your wife, for those people who don't know, is a top cancer surgeon in the country. How important has her advice been here on this, and do you feel like you were a little better prepared because you did in fact marry a surgeon?
Yeah, so she's in the other room, so I have to keep my voice down so she doesn't hear all the compliments and lets it go to her head. But no, I mean she started to see pretty clearly what was going on, and said to me that this is something you gotta pay more attention to. You gotta push your other stuff aside and really start to dig into it. And it made sense to me, and that's what we've been doing ever since, basically. But about 95% of my time is spent on COVID-related matters these days, but it's the way it should be, because it is a threat to people's health and safety, and that's my job is to make sure that that people are protected. That's where it all starts.
You were. I think the city of New Bedford and Greater New Bedford, because as goes New Bedford goes the region, was lucky that you did have that medical advice right there at home to be able to help everyone focus in it, because it is a big job, obviously, running the city. And how do you know, right? I mean, when you ran for office, you never envisioned being in this position, I wouldn't think, right?
Yeah, you don't. I mean, there's no playbook, for this at all. Not for being mayor, and it's quite like nothing else that you do as mayor. I mean, we've had hurricanes and such, and blizzards, and we've dealt with that. The ransomware attack last year was something that we had to feel that was new, but this is quite different. And I will tell you, I mean, you'll appreciate them. And the stuff that I draw on is, from Army Officer Candidate School, the 8 troop leading procedures, right? You get the warning, and you go from there, and you make a plan, and you execute. And that's the way that I've approached this since the beginning, and because you have to be able to. Again, it's really important that you understand what's happening, and that you communicate really clearly, and you maintain the trust of the public, and you continue to just let them know what they can be doing or what's expected of them. And that's been our focus from right from the get-go, Chris.
We're speaking with Mayor Jon Mitchell of New Bedford. So now, Mayor, bring us to your timeline where you started thinking about and then executing on the conversion of the nursing homes, so your city would have something. Quite frankly, I think no other city has. Explain that, how that unfolded.
Yeah, again, this is just it's another example of our approach, which is not to sit back. It's to try to get out ahead of stuff, and in light of the facts and in light of our best judgment as to where things are going. So it became clear that the entire exercise we've been in now has been to come to terms with a public health crisis by increasing the capacity of the healthcare system so that it doesn't get overwhelmed. We've seen in other countries, in China and Italy in particular, where the healthcare systems were overwhelmed because they didn't do the social distancing well early on, and they didn't have the capacity in their healthcare system, whether it was in just rooms and ventilators and staffing and PPE and other things that to withstand a surge. And so, I noticed that the state had started to set up facilities up in the Boston area and elsewhere in the state, but not here. And I wasn't about to wait around for that to, materialize here. So we got down to work. We knew that we had some nursing homes, and again, it's no knock against the state, but honestly, my approach has never been to wait for others to tell us, okay, now it's time for you to act, when it's clear that it is time to act. So, we looked at the nursing homes that had been closed recently around the city, and felt we talked to the owner, and the owner's representative said, yeah, you can check them out, and we can talk about whether the city wants to lease them. So our facilities crews went in. Mark Champagne, and who was our facilities director, and Brian Nobriga, who was our emergency management director. Both of those guys are doing a great job right now. They went in and said, well, of the 4 empty nursing homes in the city, 2 could be suitable for getting up and running. And so we should, so we started, just before we had any, real plan, we figured we would have a plan to put in place for those things and to get somebody to run them, but I didn't want to wait around for that. So, we sent our facilities crews in to both places to fix them up, to get the buildings clean, to get their systems up and running, the HVAC, the security, the elevator, we even did some landscaping because we wanted the places to look put together. I think which is important to patients who are wondering whether they should go there and stay there. So we did all that, and then we talked at length for a while with South Coast Health, and Keith Hovan had some really good conversations, and he was willing to be the medical overseer. They have South Coast Health be the medical overseer of those facilities, and we got Frank Romano, who's the owner of the Essex Group, the operator of the 2 Brandon Woods nursing homes locally. To run these, so he really stepped up too and deserves a lot of credit. So these things, they're running now. The one on Rockdale Avenue is running. The one on Acushnet Avenue is almost there yet. The one on Rockdale Avenue had, as of today, 30-something patients. It has the capacity for 107, and so it was needed. And we're in a good place now. And then the state opened up another one on the campus of UMass Dartmouth as a backup, and hopefully won't get to the point where that one is needed. But again, I just as with everything, I don't think it's not been my style as mayor to sit back and wait for things to happen. And there'll be more things coming up too in the same vein as those nursing homes. Chris, we've got some announcements coming up later this week about workplace rules that I think will be really useful once even before and after things start to reopen, because we're once things start to reopen, we're in the next phase. Things aren't going to be done because, as we know, the virus will still be around and people will still be getting sick. So we're going to need to set a whole set of ground rules around what happens next, and we'll be proactive as we always are.
So we're speaking with Mayor Jon Mitchell, the mayor of New Bedford. So again, on that the nursing home, again, I just think it's spectacular what you and your team did by moving quickly, because if we get to the point of needing the beds, well, it would still take too long to get them, right? You had to do it all in advance, in anticipation. And so you were able to add roughly how many beds to the medical system for COVID-19?
Well, so there were 107 over at Rockdale Avenue, and at the Sassaquin site there are 123, so 230.
I mean, that's incredible. Not that you're paying probably a whole lot of attention to what other cities are doing, but I don't think there's another city in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that has done what you and your team did here by making over 200 additional hospital beds available. I think that's unprecedented, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody else who did that. I think there have been some cities like Worcester that have partnered with the state on things, but I don't think that there's anybody else that actually initiated the action the way that we did.
Yeah, no,
I think that's what we should be doing. Again, this is not meant as a victory lap for me, because we're still in this mess, and will be for a while. But I appreciate the opportunity to tell people how we're approaching things, because I think that's what they're entitled to from their, elected leaders, at least those in executive positions like mine.
Well, Mayor, one of the things you've always said, and it had nothing to do with the COVID-19, but it had to do with transportation, other issues like that, which is that we're not a substitute or satellite community of Boston. We have to be our own region, right? We have to be our own area.
Yeah, I tend to look at the state as in terms of metro regions. We don't, obviously we're not part of Greater Boston or even Providence, but we're also, I do look at New Bedford as being a center and not just some, community along the coastline, so that's, we don't really use the term gateway city because it kind of lumps every densely populated municipality into a single category when they're all very different. And it's a handy term, but just one that I don't think aptly describes New Bedford. I mean, New Bedford's a real city, I've always felt that we had to behave that way, and that means taking a leadership role where we have to for our own good.
Jon, I know you got a very busy schedule, so I'm going to let you go, but I will just say this: probably the highest praise you could receive is from a neighboring mayor, right? And Coogan said, "Thank God that Jon Mitchell put this together for us, right? I mean, they didn't have it. They don't have anything, or wouldn't have had anything, but for the fact that you folks put this stuff together.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and and he's doing a nice job over there. I mean, he's really sort of reestablished trust in City Hall, which is so important, and that's what we try to maintain here as well. Because I think it's once you lose the trust of the people that sent you to office, you're useless, and I think that's so that's just a real core part of our approach. But yeah, no, I appreciate that, and. Look, I'll just end with this, Chris. I mean, I appreciate the work that you have done here. I appreciate the work that BSM has done to continue to keep the public informed and talking about this, about what we're in right now, because it's all very new. And, you guys have been a really great, trustworthy source as well. The thing I will just say to people is we've got to stay sharp. Where our cases are continuing to increase, they go down, they come up, but hasn't been a gradual decline, and so we're about to enter a phase now by virtue of the governor's order where certain things will open up. We'll take a good look at that here and to see if there are certain things that despite the governor's order, it might not make sense to open up in the same way, but again, we have to just figure that out for ourselves in New Bedford and in the surrounding region. But in any event, as I said, we're going to be in this for a while, and there may be new peaks, and maybe in the fall, maybe sooner, maybe later. It's really hard to say, but we will continue to keep the public informed and facilitate the public's understanding of what's necessary to get through it all safely. And thus far. The residents of this city and region have done a great job. People have been compliant, they've been responsible, they've been disciplined, and we just need to continue to do that.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Mayor. We really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, so I appreciate you carving out some time for us this morning and telling us what's going on. And you're right; it's not a victory lap yet, but certainly it's nice to know that our region is maybe better prepared than some parts. So thanks a lot, Mr. Mayor. Have a great day.